Let me define the terms for you. Heterosexism is the assumption that everybody's heterosexual, and if they aren't, they should be. Now, I understand it. See, I've worked with heterosexual people for almost 20 years, and I understand people's discomfort and anxiety on this issue. I think it's normal. Why should you be comfortable with something you've never been exposed to, right? And heterosexual people who grow up in heterosexual families and have heterosexual teachers and have heterosexual clergy persons and watch heterosexual people on TV, they think that everyone around them must be heterosexual, right? And they think that they could pick out a gay person because they've watched Geraldo and Montel and Oprah and Sally Jesse and Phil. They think they can pick out gay people based upon stereotypes when, in fact, you can't. But heterosexism is the assumption that everybody's heterosexual. I can relate to it. When I was a kid, I thought everyone was Catholic, you know. I mean, you're born Catholic, grow up in a Catholic hospital, Catholic schools, Catholic home, Catholic friends. So if I saw somebody eating a hot dog on a Friday, I'd run over and I'd say, it's a sin, you shouldn't be. My mother would say, what are you doing? These people aren't Catholic. I thought, well, they should be. See, that's where naivete can lead to bias, okay? Well, how does heterosexism work? Well, it works sometimes in an annoying way. I'm 45, and though Ray and I have been together for 17 years, we don't wear rings. I don't like jewelry, so I don't wear rings. I'm on an airplane, somebody wants to talk to you, right? They sit next to you, they say, so, 45 and not married, I have the perfect person for you. People do that, don't they? They sort of think that if you're single, that you just haven't found the right person of the other sex. They automatically assume that you're heterosexual. That's annoying, like a mosquito is annoying. That's not the real problem with heterosexism. The problem with heterosexism is that if you assume that I'm heterosexual, you create enormous obstacles for me to tell you the truth. If you're my parents and you think I'm heterosexual and your dream for me is that I'll be married and have children and grandchildren for you, you make it real tough for me to tell you who I am. If you're my boss, if you're my office mate, whoever you are, and we get it, we all get it every day. Those of you who are heterosexual get it every day. One example, I went to a hospital. Any of you ever been to an emergency room in the middle of the night? You hope it'll only take a minute, right? Let me get in and out of here quickly so I can go home to bed. Well, I was doing a workshop, and I was out of state, and I had to go to a hospital, what turned out to be a kidney stone. Painful experience. I check in, 11:30 at night. The nurse says, name, Brian McNaught. At the time, I lived in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I said, Gloucester, Massachusetts. She said, married or single? Well, what am I supposed to say? I mean, you know, Ray and I have been together all these years. I'm in a committed relationship that I expect will last the rest of my life. The question really means, are you heterosexually married or are you heterosexually single? Now, you all know that I've got 3 books out and 2 videos out on homosexuality and gay issues. And I've been doing 20 years of my life devoted to this, but at the same time, it's 11:30 at night, and I want to see the doctor. So what do you think I said? What did I say? Single. Why did I say single? Because it's easier, right? If I said, excuse me, this is a heterosexist question, where is significant other on this form? What is my fear? That it's going to be 5:30 at night, right? In the morning before I see the doctor. So I said single. See, they have to ask you that question, married or single, and the next question they have to ask you, too, is who's your next of kin then? If you say single, we're required by law to call your parents. Or if they're not living, your brothers or sisters. Well, I love my family, but I don't want them called, right? I want Ray called if there's an emergency, right? So I said Ray Struble. I gave his last name, and they said, well, who's he? See, they don't give up. They keep pushing on this thing, right? And people push. People generally do not take no for an answer. They keep pushing. At the lunchroom table, they want to know, you know, what are you doing for the weekend, right? So I said, he's my partner. Well, that's sort of an obtuse word, partner. And Scrooge and Marley were partners, right? I mean, we could, right? I mean, they let me sit down without any further explanation. But that's how it works. Now, how does it work in our lives in the workplace, for instance, or in the college setting, in the places that you work? Well, if I assume that you are heterosexual, then I'm going to assume that you're not going to be offended by this anti-gay comment I'm about to make. See? In my house, you're not allowed to tell ethnic jokes. You can't tell jokes about women. You can't tell jokes about Jews. You can't tell jokes about blondes. You can't tell jokes about heavy-set people. You can't tell jokes about Polish people, Native Americans, Africa. You can't tell those jokes. You know why? Because I believe that language betrays bias. And I believe those jokes create images for children. Why do I believe that? Because I grew up in Detroit, and every joke I heard as a child was a Polish joke. And I believed them. Because why else would adults be telling you these jokes? I didn't know they were telling you the exact same joke about the Irish in another city, or the exact same joke about Italians in another city, right? So I grew up, and I think when we tell jokes about Jewish American women, or we tell jokes about blondes, for the people listening to them, they have the same theme, and young people believe they're true. So I'm very sensitive about that. If I was the kind of person who told those jokes, and we know those people are out there, and they think their jokes are funny. I had a Polish person at AT&T come up to me recently after a workshop and say, Brian, I'm Polish. I hate those jokes. And they all think that they're funny. I hate where I work because the people telling those jokes. We need to be sensitive about that. The people who tell those jokes, they'll usually wait for the person they think who's going to be most offended by it to leave the room, don't they? If they wanted to come in and make a racist comment, it doesn't have to be a joke. It can be a comment about current events. And they really want to let people know how they feel, you know. They usually wait until that person leaves the room, don't they? But the problem with heterosexism is that you can't pick out the parent of a gay person. You know? Right? What do they wear? Something different? You know? You can't pick out their brothers, their sisters. You can't pick out gay, lesbian, and bisexual people. So heterosexual people often make comments. And heterosexual people often laugh at comments, not knowing that they're offending people and not knowing that they're alienating people. See, and bless their heart, I don't think most of them would do it if they knew. My theory about all of this is that heterosexual people who laugh at those jokes and who tell those jokes or make those comments generally have no idea of the pain that they're creating in people's lives. If they knew it, they wouldn't do it.